This is David Hunter, former U.S. diplomat.
Hi, David.
Of course, is a journalist, and I've known her for, I don't know, probably at least 10 years, maybe more.
Pretty long time, actually.
Yeah. Okay, and I don't know why I'm not getting everybody on here suddenly. Okay, there I got everybody. Okay, so we're going to discuss what's going on. Where do we start? Where do you want to start with this whole thing, David Hunter?
Let's stay with this, I think, because Jill would probably have some interesting insights into this. We're talking about Netanyahu's speech to the U.S. Congress, to the joint session of Congress.
Yes, I watched it. I actually live streamed it on YouTube. I thought it was that important.
Yeah, well, I was giving a little background on the dynamics of it, the fact that we were right at the stage where we talked about how when he was entering into the room, he walked past Chuck Schumer without looking at him or without giving him a handshake. And that, to me, really stood out, especially because Schumer was one of the two leaders of the joint session who had invited Netanyahu to attend. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, clearly that's a snub. I mean, I don't really know the background on this. RHETT, do you know anything about it? I can't really speak to it. It just sounds like a snub to me.
Well, yeah, they snubbed each other.
They snubbed each other.
There was a discussion. Some journalists said that they had agreed to mutually ignore each other.
Well, isn't that always the most diplomatic thing to do, is to agree to disagree?
No, actually, I think this was worse in many ways. I think that this showed for Schumer a real put down. One, he had invited Netanyahu. Probably, we said before, Schumer was a very strong pro-Israel backer over 30 years. He's a Jewish American and has been a backer of Israel for 30 or 40 years. And yet now he is at a point where he is in major disagreement with the current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Okay, hold on just a second. They're saying that you have a very small picture here, Jill, and if you would turn your...
Oh, okay. I'll turn my camera. Is that better?
Okay, now what do we do with that now? Well, now, I don't know.
I don't know.
There's got to be somebody... Then Noah was saying it needs to be the other way.
I think you're leaning to the left. I can see you pretty well.
Is that better?
Equal with that. It looks very non-professional to have a little tiny picture in the center of the two of us. Obviously, that can be taken care of somehow, technically.
Yeah.
And he's saying that it's on you. He said it's on her end by using the camera vertically.
Yeah, well, I did turn my camera horizontally, and I don't know, just...
Now he's smaller to make her bigger. That's not what I wanted.
No.
All right, well, while you're figuring that out...
To do this, we got to get this straightened out once and for all.
Yeah. While we're figuring this out, I want to mention some more about Netanyahu's comments on the floor, because this is interesting, and it gives us... RHETT and I were talking last week before he appeared at Congress with the hope that he was going to be bringing a peace agreement with him. This, of course, is a discussion that we just had earlier this morning. Israel, as of yesterday, assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, who is the chief peace negotiator for Hamas. So that does not look very good for continuation of peace talks. I've said on this program many times that I think that Netanyahu does not want peace with Hamas or peace in Gaza, that he is interested in continuing this until essentially, in support of his far right, they have removed Hamas from power, and they have converted Gaza into essentially like a West Bank, where it's occupied territory controlled by military troops with walls and fences and checkpoints. That's essentially what they're looking for. No more free Hamas and no more free Gaza. They want to convert it into a part of the military cantonment system called the West Bank. Now, you have a view on that?
You know, that sounds, I'm sorry, but that sounds kind of crazy because Hamas, free, people who live under Hamas are anything but free. And if we are looking at the history of the Gaza Strip, where it was a veritable wasteland, like there was nothing there. Nobody could live there. And what happened was the Jews actually, they occupied the territory. They started building greenhouses. They started building beautiful homes. They turned it into an oasis, a veritable oasis. And what happened after that? I mean,
Well,
just look at the history.
this story that you're giving uh, uh, really is what I call part of the mythology of the foundation of Israel. That in 1947, there were really nobody living in there. It was an empty land, and that Israel adopted and inherited a land given by God that was not occupied. That's essentially part of the mythology of what I call the creation of Israel myth. And in reality, there were lots of people. I've looked into the numbers and statistics on this, and back in 1930s, the Jews represented less than 5% of the population of that area. And the people that were living there were not necessarily just wandering Bedouins herding their sheep through the territory, which is another myth that is often promoted. You had cities like Gaza. Gaza has been continuously occupied by Palestinians for almost 4,000 years. Okay? It is a settled civilization, and it is not some bunch of just wandering migrants or Bedouins. So that's part of, again, you yourself may believe that because that's what has been taught in a lot of the Jewish propaganda schools, that's justifying that they didn't really take this land from the Palestinians. They inherited an empty land. Please respond.
Well, what happened then after they returned the land, if you will? Palestine took it over again, and it went back to being a wasteland. In fact, they used it to start building tunnels and stuff to get into Israel to kill Israelis. And what do you think about that? Is that another myth? What have they done with the land since they took it back?
Good. I'm glad you asked that. The turning that over to Palestine, or to Gazans and Hamas, that happened in 2005.
I remember.
That was the essentially. And by the way, this man that was just assassinated, Ismail Haniyeh, he was the elected prime minister of Palestine at that time. At that time, you had West Bank and Gaza united under one authority called the Palestinian Authority, and Mr. Haniyeh was the president of United, both Palestine, Gaza, and Palestine, West Bank. So now, when you say that they started having a decline in their economy, well, the Gaza economy was rather quarantined. We just talked about that in the last segment, about Israel having a naval blockade on Gaza. Israel imposed in 2006, about the time that the PLO and the Hamas started fighting against each other. Israel withdrew its troops out of Gaza but kept them in the West Bank. So Gaza was no longer, quote, occupied. That's the argument. It was not occupied, but it was quarantined. It was under blockade. And therefore, the inability, they had no airport, they had no seaport, and they had no open access to anywhere except through Egypt, that one border crossing through Egypt. So, of course, the economy of Gaza suffered. And it was controlled by Israel. And in fact, Israel actually controlled the payment of taxes back to the Palestinian Authority for operation of basic services. So Israel claims it didn't occupy Gaza, but in reality, it controlled entry, access, and finances for Gaza. And then you say, oh, well, Gaza went downhill. Well, I wonder why. Was it because of the Gazans themselves, or was it because of the absolute economic controls over Gaza being imposed by Israel?
Well, if we can look at that, but then what if we looked at the fact that they spent all the money that was given to them, humanitarian money, that they used it to build tunnels to go into Israel and kill Israelis? I mean, what was the purpose of that? Was it to make Gazans' life better? Or to kill
I
Israelis?
agree with you that the spending of money on tunnels is problematic. It is a question mark, and there are lots of humanitarian groups that give money to Hamas. And the argument that Israel is making is, well, look, you're just funding a terrorist organization by giving money to Hamas. The problem with Hamas is it's very similar to Hezbollah. It has a civilian side and a military side. The military side is essentially fighting for liberation, independence, freedom from occupation, whatever you want to call it. There are lots of terms for it. The civilian side runs the infrastructure, runs the buses, runs the ambulances, runs the hospitals, runs the schools, and of course, in some ways, that makes it difficult to separate what is Hamas. This leader that was just assassinated, for example, he was the head of the political side, not the military side. And he was a peace negotiator. So, in a way, by Israel not being able to divide up the military wing, the Al-Quds Brigade and those kind of factions, from the civilian side, they are grouping everybody in the same boat and saying, well, look, if you're Hamas, you're Hamas. I don't care if you're a civilian Hamas. The police that were running the streets and managing the traffic, directing traffic, they are considered to be Hamas, and therefore Israel is using drones to target and kill the police. Even ambulance drivers have been attacked. To me, this is where Israel has stepped into what I call the fog, and it is not able to distinguish between, as RHETT said, how do you separate the civilians from the Hamas fighters? He made a proposal just before the break that Israel really, if it wanted to, it could organize, thousands of buses and set up rather well-established and well supplied camps inside Israel, 10, 15 miles inside the border of Israel, and bring all of these civilians, the women, children, and old men and non-combatants, and bring them over there and have them sitting and living in those areas temporarily. And then
I didn't say old men, though. I didn't say old men. I said children. But I also believe Hamas should not have attacked. I don't know how to do this. I mean, first of all, it just proves that we're all idiots. Humans are idiots. They're morons. What are we doing? Killing children here, killing children here. Anybody who had any semblance of really being a man's man would say, no, we're not going to kill children anymore. There's got to be some other alternative,
So
It's just, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say something about that. Let's look at the Palestinian people as a whole. Now, they always make a big deal out of telling us that most of the Palestinians are young people, like super young, like children, right? Like most of them are children. Well, why is that? Because they don't value human life. They breed children in order to breed, I don't want to say killers, but I mean, they teach them hate. They teach them how to fight. They teach them that, everybody's their enemy. And then they use the women to breed the children. And that's why you have all these children, and you have these women in servitude to these men who are, I don't know, I just see them creating a race of warmongers. And
you said breed, and that's a good word to use. That takes it a whole different direction, because you're right, women are treated as dogs.
Yep, yeah.
And you're right, so women to breed
Yeah.
And then they take a young boy, and I know what it's like to be on the street. I remember when I was on my street at 14 years of age, sooner than most people. But if somebody had said, "Oh, RHETT, come on in, and we will all love you. These men will all love you, and you be part of our group." And then after a few months, they say, "By the way, RHETT, if you strap a bomb on you, and I know that you're shy, and you know you don't have too many girlfriends, but guess what? If you do this, Mohammed on the other side is going to give you 25 naked, beautiful women."
Not women, RHETT. Virgins. And what are virgins?
Yeah.
Virgins are children. That's what virgins are. They're children.
Okay, what we're getting into, we're straying off a little course. There.
Are we straying off really, David? Because seriously, think about.
The teaching of Muhammad, but we don't want to make this into a theology course.
But it is a theology course if you look at it.
7-0. That's the number of virgins that are promised to a jihadist.
But my point was, as a young guy, it was you want to join, you want to be accepted. And so they get these young people.
You want the 70 virgins.
Well, and my point is that breeding human shields is wrong, and that Palestinians aren't looking to create a great civilization where they cure cancer and make the world a better place. What they want to do is make the world a better place by killing every Jew from the river to the sea. I mean, that's their stated mission, is to kill Jews.
I understand your emotions on that, Jill, and certainly my guess is by your name, you are from the priestly caste of the Jews. The Cohens are the priests of the Jews. I understand that and know quite a bit about Jewish background and history. What troubles me is your inclination to what I call dehumanize the Palestinians and treat them as if, RHETT used the term breeding, and your idea that they want to be, created into human shields or suicide martyrs. I think that is an unfair characterization of the vast majority over there. Yes, there is a lot of hatred right now. Hatred on both sides. The Israelis are hating
I've been seeing a lot of Palestinian women come on camera saying, "We hate Hamas. All they've done is gotten us into trouble and caused mayhem and destruction. We hate Hamas." So even the Palestinian people, the mothers and the grandmothers are saying, "Get rid of Hamas."
Yeah, and I have no problem with that. I think that Hamas has been relatively a failure. But when you look at what's called the day after, and I go back to Netanyahu speaking at the Congress, they were talking about. He used these terms. He used, "This is a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life." Now, guess what he was talking about? He meant that Hamas glorifies death and Israel sanctifies life. And he's essentially defining this as a war of civilization against evil barbarians. Now, in this case, Israel is a...
But remember, everybody wants to forget that back in 1967 or when it was back in the 40s when they started Israel, Israel said, "Let's go 50-50," and this guy Arafat wouldn't take 50%.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Well, that 50% was not quite accurate in terms of its actual formulation. I won't get into that. We don't have time for it today. But just let me say that that's a convenient talking point, but it's not accurate. And a lot of these deals that were offered were not accurate.
Let me ask you this: when the Jews were in this area that was given to them by God,
yeah,
you said these other guys came in, occupied it, and kicked the Jews out. They were scattered around the world. Okay, now the Jews come back, and there's a war.
1,600 years later, the Jews come back.
There's a war. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I come back. I come back with the PALMER army, and I conquer Israel. Guess what? You know what I do on the day after I conquer? I go load them up in the trucks. Because when I got to Israel, I was shocked. I got to Israel. I said, "I thought these were supposed to be Jews," and I'm going like, oh, hey, hold on a second. Hey, let me call. I'm on the air. Let me call you back a little later, okay? Okay. So, what was I saying?
Anyway, what we were trying to get at
Oh,
here.
when I got to Israel,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, the first thing I hear, I'm going into Jerusalem, and I hear, what the heck is that? It sounds like a demonic spirit or something. And they said, oh, that's 5 times a day. That's the Muslims. They do this thing over the speakerphone, and everybody bows down. And I said, I thought this was supposed to be a land of the Jews. What are they doing here?
It's called.
When you occupy an area in history, I'm Genghis Khan, man. I take over. Guess what? I'm the ruler. So from now on, you want to do this with Muhammad? Get the hell out of here, because
All right,
this
you
is
just-
our territory.
you just
It's
admitted-
over with. See what the problem is? A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and that's what the problem is. You've got the conservative Jews, you've got the liberal Jews, and they're tearing apart, just like right here in America. The enemy loves that. They're trying to tear apart blacks and whites in America. There's no problem. Everywhere I go, I get along. Matter of fact, I don't even think people see, a lot of people like me, before Obama got in there, I didn't even see skin color.
All right, Rhett, let me stop this and roll back what you just said and show it through a what I call a clear vision, as opposed to the ruby red that you're looking through. The clear vision in this case is, you just said that Israel came and occupied that land. You said the new Israel. Conquered, occupied, yes. So
Took back.
So they are essentially
Purchased.
by your definition, like
Purchased.
and you used Genghis Khan as your analogy.
They did pay for it too. They purchased it. Don't forget that. There was money involved.
Yes, there was, and Herzog,
Who they purchased it from?
Rothschild, Herzog and Rothschild were big financiers of the purchase of land.
Who'd they pay?
They actually, a lot of them paid Jordan, because some of that area was occupied by Jordan.
Well, a deal's a deal, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, but as I say,
I mean, the moment they look at the state of Florida, where I live, I'm not there now, but in the state of Florida, when I had somebody sign up recently to advertise with us, I said, you got to give me some money today, because otherwise, in the state of Florida, it's not a contract until money has exchanged hands. He took out a $100 bill, gave me a $100 bill. That immediately, it says, we got a contract. And if he doesn't pay, then I'm going to go after the guy to pay his bills.
all right, Rhett, before 1947, even as Jill points out, Israel was, through financing by the Rothschilds and others that were rather active in those early days, they were buying up some of the land in that area of what was called the Palestinian Mandate. But as of 1947,
All of it, not some of it.
the amount of Jewish-owned land was less than 15% of that area. Less than 15%. Most of that area that is now Israel was achieved through military conquest, not by purchase of land. It was military. They took over the land, like you said, and said, this is our land, throw out the Palestinians. And we have to remember, 3 or 4 million of those people did leave in 1948. That was called the Nakba. That was their reason for it. They all fled to Lebanon, to Syria, to Jordan. And those people are the ones who now claim they wish to return. If we talk about what's called the final settlement, there's a big issue of what's called the right to return. And we've got at least 3 or 4 million who have been living as refugees. When they are in Jordan, they are not Jordanian citizens. That's something to keep in mind. These people are living like with green cards as guests under a refugee status. And they've been living that way for 60 years.
Here's something.
Yes, Jill.
Here's something also to keep in mind, though, is that the people who live in Israel, the Palestinians, the Jordanians, Muslims, they all live in Israel as equals. There is nobody is better than anybody else. Nobody has different rights. There is no racism. The Jews, the Muslims, all of them are living as equals in Israel. They're neighbors and they all get along. Now, why is it that the Middle East, which is a pretty big place and lots of different countries, why can't they just let this one little country be a peaceful place where everybody lives in peace and harmony? Why do they have to come in and take it over and kill people? And I mean, on October 7th, You know, you can say what you want about the Middle East conflict. I saw President Trump turn it into a very peaceful situation. He proved that it could work. And then on October 7th, we saw something that, here's what shocked me the most about October 7th, was that there were three kinds of killers, let's say. They came in. There were the people who were military and looked like military and wore military outfits, and you know, came in with their guns blazing and killed people willy-nilly. And then there were the civilians who looked like civilians and acted like, you know, rapists, murderers on steroids. And then, in addition to these civilians and these military people, there were children, young children, who were running around with cell phones going, "Mommy, I just killed a Jew. Yay, look at me, go." I mean, it was this display of bloodthirsty, crazy people who took us back into the Middle Ages with raping, killing babies in ovens. I mean, the things they were doing to families, and then taking all these hostages, and they're still there. We don't know if they're alive. I mean, everything that happened showed us that these people that did this are not just barbarians, but they're like, they're throwbacks to, I mean, I couldn't even, the stories that I heard, like, how do you defend this? How do you look at this when Israel is full of people who were living peacefully all together, and then all of a sudden these kids are in this concert enjoying themselves, like, about love and harmony, and we all get together, and the next thing you know, they're coming in like, I mean, it's World War II, it's Holocaust on steroids. Like, what was that? What was that? What do you call that? And how do you respond to that?
There are a couple of things about that. The attack itself was, they had Israeli intelligence people, a group of women. Many of them were kidnapped, by the way, afterwards. They were at the Camp Oz, O-Z, at the kibbutz Oz. And they had a intelligence gathering unit there with over 20 women, young women, 18 to 20-year-olds, rotating in and out. We know this because they actually, some of them that rotated out, have testified and talked about it openly since then, saying that they were reporting up to the chain of command of Israel military that the Hamas was involved in war preparations, and they reported on it for months. And of course, no one has investigated what was the reason for the Israeli failure that allowed this group to come in. Keep in mind, they were behind fences. They were supposed to be, and they were monitored 24/7 by Israeli intelligence. So how could this massive failure have happened? And I say this because we're now 10 months into this so-called war, and it's so fortunate for Netanyahu that he doesn't have to account for that. He has actually postponed the investigation into that failure. And he said, "Oh, we can't do that while we're at war." Well, he said war for 10 months, and it'll probably be at war for another 10 months. And therefore, nobody's investigating that. I think you as a journalist ought to be investigating that.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. And actually, we find out that CNN coverage of it was like, they knew it was happening. A lot of people knew it was happening, clearly. And it was definitely a failure of intelligence and a failure to protect people. But on the other hand, I mean, are we going to blame the victims here? I don't know. What happened? What happened? What we saw was barbarism, like, to the 10th degree. And it wasn't just the fact that this is part of warfare or whatever. This was just, you know, killing to the delight of a group of people who want to see an entire race of people wiped off the face of the earth. And now it's sparked all this anti-Semitism throughout the world, to the point where, you know, my daughter calls me, she lives in Philadelphia, and she's like, "Mom, I've never been scared to be Jewish before, and now I am. What is going on?" I mean, it's sparked off anti-Semitism throughout the entire world. And you want to blame Netanyahu for this?
Yeah, no. What I think you're miscalculating in saying that the attack by Hamas on the Israelis sparked anti-Semitism. That's not true. There was a lot of sympathy for the Jews after that attack. Many people thought this was atrocious, as you've just described.
Well,
They
of
thought it was a
course,
terrible
because
thing.
it was.
However, the response of Israel, which is what I call disproportionate. Keep in mind, Israel has now killed over 40,000 Palestinian civilians just in Gaza, and in that group, 40,000, 20,000 are children who clearly are not Hamas terrorists.
But they are Hamas terrorists, David. They are. They're used to be human shields. They are born to be Hamas terrorists. This is my point in describing the people who came to kill the Israelis. Civilians, along with military and children. The entire civilization. These people are raising their children on go kill Jews. And the response has to be even bigger than the massacre. I mean, what would you do if this happened in America and let's say the refugees came in and started murdering people?
I think that what you're suggesting,
take them all out
with your and I don't mean to be critical, but I'm trying to just analyze it. Mr. Netanyahu used the term a couple of times early on about the Amalekites. And he essentially referred to, and Rhett, you know about that from biblical terms. Most people don't know that, but the Amalekites were a group of people that were against the Israelis that apparently was ordered by Samuel on instructions from God to tell Saul to wipe out the Amalekites down to the...
That's right. He said, and someday I've got to talk to God about this because it's very disturbing. But he said you're to kill the women, the children, the animals, everything with the Amalekites, lest they be a thorn in the side to Israel forever. Saul did not do that. He took the king ransom, and he brought back goods, and he brought back women. And that's when God said, you have disappointed me to the point where he won't forgive you. You're out of, and Samuel said, no, the Lord says he's going to find a new king for Israel that will obey him. And that was the end of Saul in God's eyes. But it is it's from our point of view, we think, well, that's horrible, but it's also, I don't know. I mean, I'm not God, but I do know this. I know if you have cancer and you go and say to the doctor, well, we're going to cut out half of the cancer you have.
No, yeah.
Well, then I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like, I don't know why God does what he does. It's very hard for me to understand. Jesus was all about love. When he came to the earth, he didn't condemn one human being. I've had a visitation of the Lord. I've had a visitation of love. I have felt supernatural love, and it would not kill anybody. What it took to provoke God, or, you could go back and say, well, was Samuel speaking for the Lord? But it has come to pass. He said, they will be a thorn in the side to Israel forever. And guess what? They're a thorn in the side to Israel.
Well, and look at the whole story about Noah's Ark. I mean, what was that all about? God was so disappointed with the creation that he made that he was like, these are the only good ones. Let's get rid of all the bad ones.
You know what it says in the Bible? It says in the Bible, in Noah's age, they were building cities of metal and steel. And then there were also these giants. And when the flood came, the flood killed all the giants and it killed all breathing beings on the earth except the 8 people that were on board and the animals. And now scientists have said they can tell that there was a great flood, and they think they found the ark actually in, I think is it Turkey? I think it's
Yeah,
Turkey.
it was Turkey. Yeah.
And it sounds preposterous, but it also sounds preposterous when I tell you that I was at a prayer meeting one time and a lady had hurt her leg, her hip, the week before. She was in her 70s. And she says, she yelled at me across the room where people were praying. She said, RHETT, she's from Italy, World War II. RHETT, come here. She said, take your fingers and I put them on my hip. She took my fingers and put them on her hip. And inside her body, I felt a buzzing. And she goes, I'm going to be healed. I'm going to be healed. Now, a lot of people will mock this. They can't handle the truth. They ask for a sign, and the sign comes, they don't believe it. With my own flesh and blood, just like the doubting Thomas, I put my finger in his holes. I took these 2 fingers, which is funny. It's funny because I am a doubting Thomas. That happened, and I touched that. I've also seen other miracles take place. So it's like wild. I mean, there's more to me to say. I mean, so did Noah exist? Yeah, I believe he did.
Me too.
As crazy as it all sounds, and you know, you can live in the belly of a whale for 3 days too. Did you know that? Like Jonah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're straying a little off of foreign policy topic, and in this case, I wanted to just wrap it up with Netanyahu.
Well, you know, really, when it comes down, we try to run this world without bringing God into it, and yet it's God's world.
It's God's world. Thank you, Rhett. Exactly.
Well,
He
not
wrote the
denying,
book.
that God is playing a hand in a lot of this, and maybe he's feeling very mischievous, and that's why he's not letting us.
No, God's not mischievous, and he certainly wouldn't want to kill any innocent children.
Well, then why is he allowing this to happen? I guess would be my question.
Well, I would say this. As Billy Graham, I think, would answer this. I thought about this a lot. Why does God allow these things to happen? Well, remember, there was a rebellion against God. So God said, okay, I'm going to give you. Now listen, you said you asked a question. Now I want you to listen to it. I'm going to give you free will. Let's see how you get on without me. I'm going to be out here. I will give you this, though. If you pray and you want me to intervene, I will. But other than that, I'm over here.
Hands off.
And you can do your own thing. Well, let's see how man has done. Rape, pillage, steal, covet, greed, pride. What prevails in this world? It's not a very happy place without God. And I can tell you this, it's a foreshadowing of a place where people that choose to be eternally separated from God will be. And when that door
I remember there was a guy named Moses, and didn't he come down with the 10 Commandments? And that was because the Israelis were worshiping false gods, Baal and the golden calf. You know, what happens, people talk about the Israelis being the chosen people, but in reality, the Israelis have many times strayed off course. They have done
absolutely.
Oh, the Israelis so flawed.
In the Old Testament, you'll see where God had the enemy come in and said, I'm going to have the enemy come in and destroy you. Look what you've done. They had Baal. They burned their babies alive, sacrificing to the god of Baal, B-A-A-L.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying we can't assume that whatever Israel does is always God's will.
No, and that's true. And it's, sometimes you have to stop across the face. It's just like, a few years ago, I realized that Jesus probably is not a Republican. I was very shocked to come to that he's not a Republican, but he's also not a Democrat.
But I think he's a conservative.
Yeah, it's like, where is Israel? I mean, I don't know. There's though the Bible says there's those that have the image of the Jews, but they're not really Jews at all in God's eyes. So there's a big separation of goats and lambs going.
And Rhett.
Who am I? You know who I am? I'm RHETT Palmer. I've been here for about 30 seconds. I haven't even been here 30 seconds in God's world.
And
I'm a little kid. People go, show me the proof of God. I like these dummies on the internet, Facebook. Well, prove to me there's a God. Go away. Prove yourself. I look at a tree. Look at the intricacy of a single green leaf, and I can see God.
Right there.
Of a sheep. Look at a little baby that's born and comes out of a womb.
Look at the world.
And you don't know there's a God? You're an idiot. The Bible says you're a fool. Only the fool has said in his heart there is no God.
Okay, let Jill have her say. Go ahead, Jill.
Okay, Jill, the floor is yours.
She had her hand up.
I did. No, I'm like, what was I trying to say? No. The thing about God and the Jewish people, and it's funny because nothing really is as it seems. Everything in this world is behind some kind of veil of secrecy or subterfuge, or who knows what the truth is. I mean, David, even you look at me and you see my name is Jill Cohen, and you assume that I come from the high priests of the Jewish religion, and yes, my name does come from there, but I was adopted as a little baby and converted into Judaism as an infant. So really, who am I? I'm just this little wasn't supposed to be here. I was a mistake, if you will. And here the Lord let me live and have this life while running around as Jill Cohen, the Jew. And am I don't know. I accepted Jesus Christ in 2018 after living a life as a Jew and realizing that we Jews, we've been lied to. about a lot of things. And that's when I realized that the Savior came and he is now my Savior. And I understand that now. I have people who look at me who are my fellow Jews and they call me
Well,
horrible names.
half my family is Jewish, and you know, my niece says there'll never be a Christmas tree in this house. Well, that's because she was adopted. She's my brother's blood daughter, and she's also this other young lady's blood mother. The blood mother is Jewish. That means she's Jewish. So, you know, what was the point of what I was going to say? I hate this about getting older.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, so let me.
Oh no, I know what I was going to say. No, hold on. I want to say this one thing. It's, you know, with the Jews, people have got to understand. I had the guy who wrote the book Abraham. It was a New York Times bestseller. He made the mistake of coming to my house. Five hours later, 4 one-hour interviews, the guy finally escaped me. But what I learned was the book was called Abraham. It's all about the Jews stick together because they're a little people that have survived by committing. So that's why it's a heinous crime to them when you go against. You don't go against the Jews. Marry a Jew because that's how we've survived and stayed alive by you know, staying together as a unit. And so you can understand why they're fearful of going. Oh, I can't accept Jesus. Oh no, I believe in my people. You know, and I can understand that.
Yeah, they're not actually that united. If you get to the 12 tribes, they were fighting among themselves quite a lot.
It's crazy, isn't it?
You know, you talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, Jacob was the father of the 12 tribes by 4 different women, including 2 concubines. So
and Jesus said one day they're going to come. He said, quote unquote, he said, one day they're going to come killing you, thinking they're doing my will. And he also had 12 disciples. And these 2 disciples, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, come along the road one day. They said, hey, Jesus, this guy's down there telling people about you, but he's not preaching like you. Shall we call down fire from heaven to consume him? Because they'd seen miracles and stuff. You know, he goes, Jesus said, the Son of Man has not come to destroy men's lives, but to save men's lives. And from that point on in the Bible, Jesus refers to them as the sons of thunder. Ha, ha, ha. Humor. They're the sons of fire and thunder. Have you consumed anybody today, boys? I mean, the 12 disciples couldn't even get along with each other.
All right. Well, to wrap it up, the Netanyahu's conclusions on the Gaza, the end of war. This is an important point for us to understand. The United States and most of the world have been supporting this idea of a 2-state solution as the end of the conflict, and that the Palestinians would be given a moderate government. Or encouraged to form a moderate government over both Gaza and the West Bank.
Yeah, they were offered that. Mm-hmm.
What Israel is proposing, what Netanyahu proposed in front of Congress, essentially, is that we must retain overriding security control over Gaza to prevent the resurgence of terror and to ensure that Gaza will never again threaten Israel. So, in a sense, what they're saying is they want a demilitarized and de-radicalized Gaza, which means that it will be essentially a protectorate of Israel, or an occupied territory of Israel, with no military and with a defanged, if you want to use that term, or at least a tame government that will not represent a threat to Israel. In a sense, that does not constitute a separate independent state of Palestine. It represents a controlled territory of Israel. And so...
Well, I can understand why. You know why? The other way sure hasn't worked.
It never worked. And they never accepted the 2-state solution, David. I mean, how many times were they given this option and they spit in Israel's face and were like, no, we'll never do that. So 2-state solution might have worked because Israel might have accepted it, or they would have accepted it. They said they would. And every single time it fails because of them, not because of Israel. You know this.
That's of course, you're misreading the facts. I'm not saying that you're not aware of the facts, but for example, the the original proposals for dividing up the state included a very unfair distribution, with all of the good land being given to the Israeli side, and it required a migration of 200,000 Palestinians out of the land that was going to be given to Israel. And that was part of the reason why they rejected that proposal. There have been a number of proposals like that have not necessarily been fairly allocated. So I don't think the term spitting in the face is correct. Yasser Arafat was the last one to turn down. This was at the Camp David Accord, when there was some sort of a near peace agreement being negotiated by Jimmy Carter. And in that case, the reason for the sticking point why Arafat would not sign off and accept that deal, which was that the Arafat demanded the right of return. I talked about that earlier, that there are 3-4 million Palestinians living in Jordan and Syria and Lebanon that want to come back, and they are not citizens of those countries.
Well, you can understand that when there's only 7 million Jews and there's 7 million
Hello.
other guys. You're going to come in and flood our country,
Right?
and then take us over by the inside out.
Well,
You'd be an idiot. You'd be an idiot to accept that.
Exactly.
my proposal in this what I call this two-state solution of 2024 would be that those people have the right to return, but only to the newly constituted West Bank and Gaza territories, which now constitutes the state of Palestine. Not to come back to other areas.
You know, if I was truly a good man, and obviously I'm not a godly man, because if I was, at the age of 70 now, I should go off. Actually, you guys should too, but this is for me. I'll judge me. I should go off, and I should fast and pray for a week or two.
And I do this,
Like
Brett,
God,
fasting
say,
and praying.
Thus saith the Lord, you know, to utterly destroy the Palestinians.
100%.
Go in, wipe them out with nuclear. Or he says, go in and love them. But whatever, let's get a decision from God, what he wants, let's execute it, and get this done with.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know what? What? Go ahead, Jill.
This is 2024, and we have people raping and pillaging in 2024. I mean, can you even? Like, who are these people? I mean, the way that they behaved, it was, it was a display of barbarism that, I mean, we thought the Holocaust was bad. What we saw on October 7th was worse than the Holocaust.
But I do want to say this on behalf. I have to, it's truth. There's go to Netflix and watch this documentary. And this one Palestinian kid is in a wheelchair. And the other kid says, yeah, he was just playing over the garbage heap. And then an Israeli soldier. Now, just because this Israeli soldier did this doesn't necessarily reflect on the rest of it. We had Cali. We have bad people in the military too. So but nonetheless, there are crimes being perpetrated from both sides. Make no mistake. I mean, nobody here is clean as a whistle. Look, I get on and do this show, and I was laughing this morning. How can I laugh when 12 children just died? How can I laugh when how many thousands of children have died in Palestine? I mean, not Palestine.
20,000.
How much?
20,000
children. I don't care where the child is from. We need to protect children. Children, this is men. As I said, bust the children out of both countries. I'm sorry about the women. They don't get. Maybe they get bust. I don't know. But the men don't get bust. Not a man, no matter what his age, because that's the warriors.
If you're over 70, they should bust you out.
No, I'm capable of handling a gun. I'm 70. Matter of fact, I thought lately, I wondered if I'm going to have to get a gun to save my America. I'm the shoeshine boy from upstate New York. No, I'm very serious. I wondered lately, am I going to have to spill my blood before I die to gain back this country? Because we sure got some real idiots running things at this point.
You're right. You're right. It's a total clown show what's going on right now. And the people who are losing the most in this country and all over the world are the children. The things that the children are being subjected to.
The blacks just came in, this whole thing about the blacks are saying pro-abortion. They got this guy that might run for might be the vice president with this Kamala. They're telling us what we can do with our bodies, and he's speaking to a whole crowd of 10,000 black people and going, are these black people not aware that the majority of babies that are aborted are black?
That's right. That's
The
right.
Democrats want to kill the blacks. The lady who started Roe versus Wade hated black people.
Okay, let's stay on the foreign policy. This is drifting off into what I call serious disinformation, and I don't want to be associated with it. So I've kind of wrapped up most I had to say on this with the Netanyahu. I'd like to get Jill's opinions of Benjamin Netanyahu and Mr. Smotrich and Mr. Ben Gvir. They are called the far right Zionist extremists. But
Okay,
you
we've got.
What do you
Jill,
think?
you have 6 minutes. Go to it.
Okay. All right. When you call people extremists, you know, you are also dehumanizing them. We have people who want to make the world a better place, and we have people who want to have power over the world, rule the world. I mean, we are dealing with, you know, just the most evil. I've never seen evil at this level ever in my life. I didn't even know it existed. And on October 7th, I learned that not only is anti-Semitism alive and well, and spilling onto the shores of America. I grew up as a Zionist. I was raised to be a Zionist as an American Jew. And I always thought, why are we fighting for Israel when it seems to me that America is the freest place for anyone, for Jews, for blacks, for anybody. This is a very, it's a good society, and this is what I always thought. And now I see our government has been taken over by a clown show, the likes of which I could never even have imagined before. The people that are running our country are doing so on behalf of a 1% of people who seem to hate everybody. I mean, everything that's going on right now is a direct result of people not living in the real world, where good people should be protected, bad people should be punished, shunned, and stopped. I mean, it's the opposite.
I was in Burlington, Vermont the other night, talking to a group of young people. There's 2 other churches, then there's this collectiveness of all these homeless people. They said they've made new laws there in Burlington where they have safe areas. You can go and get free needles. You can go and get drugs. They won't arrest anybody. And the other guy says, don't call the cops because they won't come anyway. I said, why not? He said, because they defunded the police and there aren't any police in Burlington anymore. Who the hell in their right mind would defund police? What is that? How does anybody in their right mind, unless it's demonically demon controlled, why would anybody defund police?
It's because the criminals are in control right now, RHETT. The criminals are in control, and you can tell because they are protecting each other. They are able to go out and shoot the president in broad daylight, and then everybody goes, I don't know why that happened. I don't know. Did you see anything? I didn't see it. I always saw him, but we didn't know what to do. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Let's try to calm things down a little bit here. This guy that shot the president, former president Donald Trump, was, by the way,
future president too. Excuse me.
A registered Republican.
Give me that registered Republican thing a little bit more. Tell me more how this guy was a registered Republican. When you say things like that, you discredit yourself big time. There's no registered Republican conservative who wants to go and shoot President Trump. Don't give me that crap. He was no registered Republican.
Hold on. CNN also reported that Trump fell on the stage and the Secret Service picked him up to bring him to the car.
Yeah, and Ray said that he was hit by shrapnel from a teleprompter that never even got touched. I mean, come on, these people are lying to you, and you're going to swallow this crap? I'm not swallowing it. I'm not listening to any of this bullshit.
Okay, you're supposed to be a journalist.
I am supposed to be a journalist. I am a journalist. I'm not supposed to be a journalist. I went to journalism school, and I was with a major metropolitan newspaper for 18 years. So I am a journalist. I'm not supposed to be one. I am one. And you saying that to me also discredits you, because you're trying to discredit me, and it's not right. It's not right.
Well, do you think CNN is doing that when they said that Trump fell to the floor and the Secret Service took him off the stage?
Thank
You
you.
know what I mean? I mean, it's just a con. If you watch the news objectively every night, it's still
They're not journalists. I'm more of a journalist than they are.
I was watching live.
So was I.
So was
And
I.
What happened is Trump reached to his ear, and then he himself dropped to the floor. He didn't fall, he dropped. On his own, he was smart enough to know he's got to get to low elevation to avoid further being a target.
Yeah.
That was his,
And the headline should have
he
read.
admits that. He admits that.
The headline
course.
should have read the president was shocked and therefore fell to his knees and then was picked up by the Secret Service and
He
carried
didn't
away.
fall to his knees. He dropped on his own. He chose to go down. He was ducking. That's what he was doing. If you're under
Because he had just been shot.
Yeah. So that doesn't justify what CNN said.
No.
He didn't even mention the attempt.
Yeah, I think he showed perfectly good reactions. If I were in the same circumstances, I would do the same thing. I would
Oh,
pull my
good.
feet out from under me and drop down
It's
to avoid.
nothing less than a miracle. It's nothing less than the hand of God.
Yes, and God was there, and there was an angel and a flag right before that happened. Did you see that angel and the flag? I'll never forget it. It's the greatest picture I've ever seen.
We're about out of time, guys.
Yeah, the next
Yeah,
show
we are.
to come
Our
on.
next show is coming in. Jill, thanks for coming in. We'll see you on Friday about your new book. David, I'll see you next week.
All right.
See you next week.
Sounds
Let's
great.
all pray for peace. Let's all pray
Let's
for
all
peace.
pray for
Everybody.
peace.
We all need to pray for
Yes, we
peace.
do.
You're responsible. Okay.
Amen. All right, you guys. Well, I don't know how to get off of this show. Leave. Okay. All right. So that was the Rhett Palmer show with David Hunter. Rhett warned me that David was a bit of a lib, and so we got to see that on full display. I mean, you know, I always think when somebody turns around and says to me things like, "You're supposedly a journalist," I'm like, well, I am a journalist. You know, that's an unfair attack because I am nothing but a journalist. And I've been one since I graduated from journalism school in 1987. Scripps School of Journalism, okay? Card carrying. Don't tell me that I'm not something that I am, especially when I see the news. And like Rhett just pointed out, when President Trump got shot, the news reports were things like President Trump fell down. President Trump heard a loud noise and had to be taken away by Secret Service. I mean, the headlines were ridiculous when really President Trump was not assassinated, but was almost assassinated. And that's the facts and that's the truth. And as a journalist, you know, I see these lies being peddled on a daily basis. Okay, here's an example. In 1980, 83, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm in journalism school, right? And I'm being told that the Associated Press is the king of my profession, okay? Everything lives and dies by the Associated Press. And if you have a source, you better use their names, because if you don't use the name of a source, then that source doesn't really exist, and that's a lie. And this is what we were all told. Now I read stories in the Associated Press, and Reuters, another one that we were told was so great. And they're like talking to sources who are speaking on condition of anonymity. That's called a liar. Unnamed sources, right? That's another liar, okay? The writer's a liar. The source maybe doesn't exist. The source could be a liar. You have no idea. The things that the mainstream news tries to pawn off as journalism is ridiculous. So I'm not supposed to be a journalist. I am a journalist. And that's why I no longer affiliate myself with any news organization. I'm no longer with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I no longer write for Human Resource Executive Magazine. I no longer, I even used to be part of the, it was like a Christian news network, you know, any of it. I'm not associated with any of them. I'm an independent journalist. And the people who fund me and support me are you guys. And that's it. Nobody else. Oh, and Muffin. Hey, Muff, Mommy's over here. You guys want to see Muffin? Let me go get her. Come here, baby. She just woke up. Come here, Potato. Hi. Hi, come say hi to everyone. She picked a good time to wake up. All All right, you guys. So sorry I couldn't show you what the show looked like because my computer is like out of memory and I've got to get a new one. I've got a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, I'm having probably the greatest week of my life. Today, well, yesterday was the first day that I got to see my new book. Do you think about me on my birthday? Sorry, this is backwards. But anyway, do you think about me on my birthday is now an actual book. Ah! This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It has literally taken me decades to write this book. And now that it's finished and it's an actual book, I can't even, it's blowing my mind. Anyway, today's the day I'm going to be working on my website and getting this book ready to go on the market. And I'm not putting it on Amazon. At least right now, I think I'm not putting it on Amazon because I hate Amazon. And I hate everything that's big corporatocracy based, money coming from the gods, you know, the gods, not God, the gods, as in the fake gods. So I'm not serving the fake God. I'm serving the Lord and Jesus Christ, and of course Muffin is my little bestie here. She keeps me honest. All right, you guys, I'm going to say ciao for now. I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Beach Report on the RHETT PALMER Show, taking on libtards. Sorry, I'm not calling David a libtard, I'm just saying. You just never know. You know, I just really, it makes me really angry though when people will come at me and try to discredit me saying that I'm not actually a journalist. I see what journalism has turned into. I know the difference between real journalism and propaganda. And what I am giving to you guys, and I'm not peddling it and I'm not selling it and nobody pays me or anything. I just come out and I speak the truth because I believe in it and I can sleep at night. All right, you guys, ciao for now. And we'll see you on the next edition of the Beach Report. No, he didn't do his homework, Donna. All right, you guys, have a great day.